Hello, good morning, everyone. This is Playbook's managing editor and author, Jack Blanchard. It is Tuesday, April the 29th, and it is the 100th day of Donald Trump's second term in the White House. Doesn't time fly? I am here with Politico's White House bureau chief, Dasha Burns, to celebrate this momentous occasion and talk about how it's all gone. How are you doing, Dasha?
I'm great. Happy 100 days to all who celebrate.
All who celebrate. That is obviously the big news that is driving the day. President Trump will be doing a couple of big things this evening that we will be looking forward to watching. Firstly, a big 100-day rally in suburban Detroit, Michigan. It's supposed to be starting about 6 p.m. He's normally a bit late getting on stage at these things, but that's what they're telling us. And then
or a lot late.
Yeah, says someone who spent a lot of time at Trump rallies in their time. Yeah, listening to really great music and standing in a crowd waiting. There could be a bit of that tonight, but he doesn't want to clash with his own TV interview that he's doing on ABC News. There's an Oval Office sit-down, obviously pre-recorded, that'll be going out at 8 p.m. So if he's got any sense, he'll have his own rally wrapped up by then. Those are the two big Donald Trump moments we've got to look forward to today. The news from overnight is that the Donald Trump effect has been noted north of the border as well. Dasha, Mark Carney, the Liberal Prime Minister, has been returned to office after their election, and an election where the switch in the numbers, I've never really seen anything like it. The Conservatives were so far ahead in Canada before Donald Trump came to power, but the Trump effect, the stuff he's been saying about Canada seems to have completely flipped the picture up there as people had been predicting.
And I'm sure he'll be taking credit for it today.
Well, he's talked about it a bit over the last couple of days, and he didn't seem to mind. I think he sort of thought it was all rather funny that he
likes to have an impact, whichever direction it leads sometimes.
Well, I think we can safely say he's had that over the past 100 days. I've been, I was, writing Playbook through the night, thinking about the past 3 months of my life and just how extraordinary it's been watching Donald Trump go at this second time. Have you got one thing that he's done, Dasha? Because there's been so much noise and so much activity. Have you got one thing you would pick out as the single most consequential action Donald Trump has taken since January the 20th?
Okay, I was going to say trade, but we also just have no idea where that is going to land at this point because it's also so up in the air. It certainly has been transformative in terms of the global economic order already. But what has happened inside of the federal government, both the enormous authority for the executive branch that President Trump has just absolutely expanded, reshaped, made into something we haven't really seen a president exercise before. There have been some comparisons to FDR and the New Deal, but this is extraordinary. And the gutting of the federal government at the same time. So it's consolidation, and it's also defenestration of so many of these agencies. And I think that the effects of that have barely begun to be felt. It takes time, and we're not going to really see just how consequential it is, I think, for maybe months, maybe years. But boy, is that going to have a lasting effect and going to be very, very difficult, even if there's a two-term Democratic president after President Trump, to unravel and put the toothpaste back in the tube.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. With both of those things, it's very hard to know just how far-reaching they're going to end up being, but they both feel like they could be pretty damn far-reaching. Let me just throw one more into the mix, Dasha, which is my British hat on, which I suppose I wear all the time.
Oh, I love when you put that hat on.
It's a big, people who can't see it.
Does it have a feather in it? Does it have a feather?
It's got a bright Union Jack on the top and a marmalade sandwich or something. Anyway, point I was going to make was that the change that Donald Trump has made in Europe, even more significant than trade, is on defense and security, and actually sort of led by Pete Hegseth and J.D. Vance in a way, but very much with Donald Trump's backing. The change to the way that Europe views its own security, this sense that suddenly America cannot be completely relied upon to protect Europe. When I was growing up there, when anyone's been growing up in Western Europe for over recent decades, you just sort of accept and assume that America is there to protect you when it comes to the crunch. And the sort of language we saw out of this administration in sort of February, March time around the Munich Security Conference just changed that. And if you talk to European diplomats now, they say, no, Europe has to stand on its own 2 feet. Lots of people in America might think that's a good thing, but it is a profound profound change. The sense of insecurity it has created in places like my own country, and especially with the sight of a Russia over on the eastern border of Europe that is clearly prepared to use military action against its neighbors when it wants to. It's left people really shaken to their core. And that's not coming back. Like whatever happens now, Europe is going to have to build its own security solution, because that basic trust, Europe, you talk to people in Europe, they go, well, we don't know who America's going to elect next. Like maybe they'll feel even more strongly in the way that Donald Trump does about this. As I say, I accept that lots of people here might think that that's a good thing and maybe it should have happened a long time ago, but it is a profound change to the post-war order that I think is a permanent one.
Well, and you wearing that hat is so helpful, because I think that there's a lot we have taken for granted here in the US and that the world has taken for granted. I think when you look at this through a historic lens, which is so hard to do when we're in this moment, but you can't take for granted the world order, right? Like, civilizations fall, superpowers that once were are superpowers no more. Like, that has happened across a span of time. I think what's so shocking is it is happening in such a condensed period. It is so rare that you recognize in the moment that you are living in that this is going to be not just one chapter in a history book. I mean, this is going to be half the book for this century, right? Or more. And it's extraordinary to think we are living in it. We are watching these changes happen moment by moment here.
Give us a sense of how you think his first 100 days are being viewed inside the White House, because we know what we're going to hear from Donald Trump this evening at his sort of victory rally. Everything was brilliant. Everything was amazing. We know the bombast. We know the hype and the exaggeration and so on. And there are certain things, such as cutting the number of people crossing the border, that he will rightly say, I promised this and I have delivered it. And everyone said I couldn't do it. And he has done it, regardless of what you think of the methods used. Do they really think the whole thing's been a complete triumph in there, or is it a little bit more nuanced when you talk to officials?
Well, it's always more nuanced behind the scenes, but I think there was the first month or so, maybe even 2 months, I was surprised by how little palace intrigue there was, by how much he was executing, putting out these executive orders, working with the legislature. And then I feel like it was really right around Signalgate that Signalgate happened, and he started to make these shocking announcements about tariffs that were more aggressive than anyone expected. There was a jockeying behind the scenes on the economy between these different characters, and people started to do a little bit of the backstabbing. And all of a sudden, within the last month, there have been a number of scandals, of distractions, of the methods for the agenda, a little bit more problematic, even within his own party and people who support him than folks expected. And so I think the 100 days is coinciding with a moment that's not as good a look as President Trump and his team were hoping. But I think he is also viewing this in a much more long view lens. Certainly he doesn't love the poll numbers. He's never happy with bad headlines, but I don't think it's affecting him as much this time around as it was the first time, because I think he has an idea for what he wants his legacy to be. And he is brasher, bolder, more unleashed, more aggressive than he ever was in his first term. And I think he and his team knew that this was going to rub some people the wrong way, and it was going to cause some turmoil. The question is that turmoil going to last? Is there going to be another side to this, or is the turmoil just going to keep going?
I mean, it's hard to imagine the turmoil won't keep going. It sort of feels to me like the first 100 days was, like you said, almost like split in two halves. Like the first, I don't know if it really was 50 days, but approximately really felt like it went very well for them. They were very well prepared when they came in. They had a plan. They were executing it at lightning speed. The Democrats couldn't keep up. The federal government couldn't keep up. The courts couldn't keep up. We could barely keep up with writing about it all. And they were enacting so much change. And then, as you say, suddenly the story was all about gaffes and blunders on the signals, like really big, serious one. Then an economic policy that was clearly it is unpopular and it tanked the markets, and suddenly everybody's talking about that. The Ukraine thing hasn't really gone well from a guy who promised he'd fix it on day one. He seems to be getting sort of strung along by both sides at the moment. Although, you know, all of these things are recoverable, but it definitely feels like the second half of the first 100 days have been.
Yeah. And setbacks in the courts, by the way, too. You know, I think initially it was difficult for the judiciary to really keep up. And now they're really starting to create more roadblocks for him. And I also think, for me, I had expected the first 100 days, given all of what I saw on the campaign trail, to really be about immigration. Like that's been maybe my biggest surprise, that has not been the story. They keep trying to make it the story, but at first it was Doge, and now it's is the global economy going to melt down, right? And I think that the immigration story is going to ramp up. I'm keeping a very close eye and doing a lot of reporting behind the scenes, preparing for that. But I'm surprised that has not actually been as front and center as you would think it would be, given all of what he said on the trail.
Totally agree. We've got a sort of another 100-day period coming up before August. So this sort of second 100 days, if you like. And it feels like there'll be a lot of focus on action in Congress through that period, because of course almost everything Donald Trump has done has been executive orders, right? Stuff that the next president can easily or relatively easily reverse, or some of it in theory anyway. You can actually get Congress to pass some laws that you can have much longer lasting and more seismic change still. And they've obviously got a big battle to try and get any sort of reconciliation done through this. And
through all of that, what's also going to be important, and what also I guess I shouldn't be so surprised, but the fact that Democrats have still not figured it out at all, seemingly, how to deal with Donald Trump. Are we resisting? Are we not? I keep coming back to that picture of Gretchen Whitmer in the Oval. She's there, she's in the room, but she has the binder over her face. And it's so representative of, I think, where the party is at in just not knowing how much they want to play ball or how much they want to, you know, really be the party of resistance. You've got J.B. Pritzker coming out criticizing the do-nothing Democrats. You have David Hogg trying to primary Democrats, and in this fight with the DNC, there's no message and there's no messenger right now. And I think these next 100 days, especially with more attention starting to come to the Hill, they need to figure out some answers for themselves.
I'm not a big person for political predictions, but I'm hereby going to predict that the Democrats will not sort it out in the next 100 days. I think it's going to take them a lot longer than that. But we shall see. All right. Thank you, Dasha. We shall be looking forward to a big Donald Trump speech this evening. And you and I hope, will be unpicking it on the podcast for everyone tomorrow morning. For more of our thoughts on this and what else you need to know today, read Playbook this morning, every morning at politico.com/playbook. I'm Jack Blanchard, and that was Dasha Burns.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks very much for listening.